Welcome to the City. I'm Anthony Wilson, the Public Information Officer for the City of San Angelo. And joining us today is our new Economic Development Director, Roland Pena. Roland, thanks for being with us.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Anthony.
Now, for our audience who may not know you yet, I'd like you to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background.
Sure. Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm a native West Texan. I was born in Midland, raised in the nearby town of Ozona. I am a graduate of the University of Oklahoma's Economic Development Institute. I have an MBA in International Trade and a BBA in Business Management, both from Sul Ross State University. I think those credentials have allowed me to participate in a variety of roles with two different companies. I've only worked for two different companies: West Texas Utilities, Central Southwest Corporation, American Electric Power were all one company, although they shifted names, and the Lower Colorado River Authority. And I played different roles with those companies, specifically leadership roles in government affairs or government relations, public administration, and business development and economic development, which is what I love to do the most.
Now, as the Economic Development Director, what about that particular job here in San Angelo intrigued you?
It was intriguing to me because of all the dynamics. Number one is the partnership that exists today. I mean, it's important to have a partnership so that we can assemble when we're needed, whether it's an issue or whether you're bringing in a prospect, but to show the client and to show a site selector that you've got the house in order and that you've got a team available to assist a company to locate in this community. And so that was an important aspect. The other unique feature about this position was the way it's housed. You have the partners all in one building, all who are able to participate in your activity, and then we have a business incubator. That was another unique feature of the position. And so that is something that excited me, and I felt like I wanted to be a part of that community in that role.
Now, as the Economic Development Director, you're obviously leading the Economic Development Department. Explain what the Economic Development Department is and what it is that it does.
The Economic Development Department really is best described as a three-person. We're two professionals and an executive and administration assistant. And we plan, we coordinate, and we help implement the business development and economic development activities for the Development Corporation and for the City of San Angelo. And that includes the execution of a strategic plan for the city and for the Development Corporation.
Now, many people may not realize that how the City of San Angelo Development Corporation, what we commonly refer to as the COSA-DC, how it spends the half-cent sales tax dollars, has largely been decided by voters in prior elections. Talk a little bit about that and sort of where the money from COSA-DC goes.
So let me back up a little bit. Now, there was two referendums before the voters finally passed the half-cent sales tax for economic development, and then three referendums later, or three other referendums approved some specific projects. So the voters approved specific projects, and I'll mention a few just so that the viewer can relate to the specific project. The Texas Bank Sports Complex, the improvements at the fairgrounds and Coliseum and the Convention Center, river improvements and the dredging of the Lake Nasworthy, and the securing of future water supplies. So the voters voted for specific projects, but they also allocated funds for economic development purposes, and that meant using those funds to help existing businesses continue to grow, existing businesses continue to retain them in the event that some other community is trying to lure them away from San Angelo, and to bring in new dollars and new wealth by attracting and bringing in new businesses and creating jobs in the City of San Angelo.
And how much of the half-cent sales tax is devoted to that specific effort versus how much is devoted to water development projects?
28% of the half-cent sales tax is dedicated to economic development efforts, and the remaining 78% is dedicated to future water supplies and water infrastructure and water conservation programs.
Now, tell me a little bit about what your impressions of San Angelo have been thus far since you've come onto this job.
Well, San Angelo continues to thrive, and I am so impressed that they continue to, or the city and the community continues to excel. I mean, it's almost like we have a foundation, and we're following what our leaders and our forefathers laid the groundwork for. I mean, they played economic development. They were able to diversify the economy, and they were survivors. And that continues today. And so we have strong partners who are striving to do the same today. And that's what excites me about being here in San Angelo. And that's my impression about being here in San Angelo.
What about your impressions of the Economic Development Department and how it operates?
The Economic Development Department, though, prior to coming here, was short-staffed. Quite frankly, I mean, it was just one person and the administrative assistant. They had their duties and responsibilities split. Obviously, we always want continuous improvement. That's what we strive for. We can be much more effective. We have also a partnership with and a contract with a partner, the Chamber of Commerce, who helps to do the marketing and recruitment. So we utilize them, utilize other partners to help us to work more efficiently and effectively. However, I think we can do some more streamlining so that we can operate more efficiently and be more effective. It's like anything else, Anthony. I mean, it's like the salesperson who constantly. I mean, there's a devotion of time, and you have to devote an extreme amount of time to follow up. So you develop a lead, and you follow up on the lead, and you continue that communication, and that takes time. And so in order to be able to do that, we have to operate more efficiently, much more effectively, and we have to operate much smarter than what we've done in the past. So continuous improvement is important to us.
You've talked a lot about, so far, partners of the Economic Development Department and of the COSA-DC. Talk a little bit about who those partners are and how those partnerships work.
Well, here are some of the core partners. Obviously, we'll work with the city leadership. That's management and city council. We'll work with the county judge and the commissioner's court. We'll also work with state and federal elected officials. We'll work with the Chamber of Commerce, and we'll work with the Workforce Development Board, and we'll work with the educational institutions like Angelo State University and Howard College. All of them play a role, obviously, to have the team and the resources to help to be able to assist the business, whether they're looking for a labor force or whether they're looking for a specific skill that we can train on, or if we are able to work together to help make a presentation to the company that is conducting a site selection for San Angelo. So we work real closely with them to help address the issues that affect business today, because we want them to be successful so that they can continue to be successful, so that San Angelo continues to be successful and continue to thrive.
Have you yet developed any goals for the Economic Development Department?
Well, you've heard me allude to that right now. We want to be much more effective and much more efficient. So yes, we're going to be looking at streamlining. Obviously, we want to adhere to compliance. So we want to make sure that the dollars that are being spent according to law. Not only that, but that we're able to look at a return on investment, and we're also able to look at an economic impact of that particular project, so that the Development Corporation can make prudent decisions and make a determination of how prudent those dollars are, when they'll receive a payback, and what the economic impact potential of that project is.
There's been some talk within the community that the growth that we're seeing in oil field activity lessens the need for economic development and diversification of our economy. How do you respond to that? Talk a little bit about how you convince people otherwise of that.
That's a difficult question, and I've heard it a lot. But it's the way I describe it. It's like the person who lives in a floodplain but says, "Why do I need flood insurance? Because we're in a drought. It's never going to rain." Well, but it's mandated, and so the voters have mandated. They've voted for economic development and said, "Hey, we're making these dollars available so that you can help existing industry continue to grow, that you can help retain those businesses in our community, and that you attract new wealth, new businesses, and creation of jobs." And that's how I describe that. Where I came from, we had a term that we were starting to utilize because of the drought. We wanted to be drought proof. And the way I see it is, economic development is so important. It's important during those times when there's a downturn in the market, when there's a recession. We want to be recession proof. So if we're able to do our job effectively, we're able to diversify and help continue to thrive and create and just have a what's the word? So when in a downturn economy and when in a recession, we don't feel it as much. In fact, the state of Texas has done that, and it leads the nation in job creation. And so that's how we want to be.
When you're weighing whether or not to give a company some sort of economic incentive, what are the factors that come into play in that decision?
I'm glad you had to ask that question. And the reason I say this is because I think the other part about what we do in administering the funds is we want to be a good steward. So we want to determine that there's a highest and best use of the funds, the economic development sales tax funds. But what I've learned in my experience when recruiting, not every company wants an incentive. I've had a company that has said to me, you know what, after we put the package together and they made the announcement, they said, all I wanted to know was, can you meet my need, number one, and number two, did you want me in your community? And they chose not to take advantage of any of the incentives or of the abatements and the resources that we had available. So what I'm saying to you is this: economic incentives are important if they're needed, but the number one goal is to meet the needs of the client, to make sure that's what the company is looking for. Can they be competitive in your community, and can you minimize risk? Incentives are just an additional attraction.
We only have about a minute left. If a business owner is looking to either expand or maybe locate their business in San Angelo, how do they go about determining whether or not they qualify for some sort of economic incentive?
Every business is different and unique, and so is the project. So what I would recommend is that they call our office. We want to sit down and talk to them. We have guidelines that allow us to determine whether you fall within a certain industry code to allow us to use our half-cent sales tax dollars to help incentivize you or meet your needs. However, there are other resources that we can make available to you. And I talked about the partnership, and they bring those other resources to the table. And so what I would recommend is, if there's a business out there, especially if they're looking to move out of San Angelo, we want to talk to them because we believe we can help address their issue.
We've been talking with our new Economic Development Director, Roland Pena. When we return, we'll be talking with another new director, our Development Services Director, Patrick Howard. But first, we're going to spotlight another outstanding city employee, heavy equipment operator, Cody Blaylock.
My name is Cody Blaylock. I'm a heavy equipment operator for the Stormwater Department, and I've worked for the city of San Angelo for 6 years. I get to play on all the cool equipment, motor graders, the front end loaders. The backhoe is considered light equipment, but I also run that every once in a while too. So just the cool machines I get to play on. Not very many people get to do that. I mean, it's just one of those things that I see big equipment on the side of the road and I can point at it and say, I know how to run that. I know how to make something look cool, or at least in my mind anyway. If you need to correct the grade of whatever project you're working on, well, we're stormwater, so if we're working on a storm drain that doesn't have enough fall, we'll send in our maintainer and it'll cut the ground to give it some fall, and you need to find that grade. So the maintainer will put the blade in, cut the ground however many inches, and it'll get you to that grade that you need. But because of different obstacles, sewer lines, utility lines, and all the different controls, it does make it challenging. You always have to be aware of what you're doing, and your blade could be too deep over here, too high up here, so you're always gotta be observant of what you're doing. Absolutely. I just want to better myself and learn, and because I'm a firm believer in knowledge is power. And so the more I learn, the more I think I'll better myself. It's cliche, but again, I'm fortunate enough to say no one day is ever the same here. And whether it's crunch time to get drains done before a big storm comes in, or just helping the citizens of San Angelo in whatever way, shape, or form. I wasn't here for it, but the big water main break several years ago, the FLDS situation, actually helping people is a reward. I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years. I enlisted while I was in high school, and 1 week after high school I went into the Marine Corps and got out in June of 2007, and I was in the city in August of 2007. I was in the infantry. I loved being outdoors, and the position that I applied for kept me outdoors. I love being outdoors, and it just fit me. I liked the physical work of it, and it just fit. being able to, like for example, on weekends, I'm driving around with my wife or my family, and we look at a big project, and say, I helped build that. You know, that's a pretty good feeling. I'm a big history guy. I love history, and you know, looking at the pyramids of Egypt or the Colosseum in Rome or the Parthenon in Greece, you know, being able to look at something and say, I contributed to this project, you know, it's fulfilling. It's really, really fun. I'm part of the younger generation with video games, and it's like playing a video game. It really is. It's a lot of fun, but it's one of those things that you don't want to get caught up in too much fun. So I mean, power lines, and like I said, utility lines, you have to be very, very careful. But for the most part, it's really, really fun. I think that's what would surprise people. Like I said, I'm a history buff, so if you were to turn on my TV right now, it'd either be on the military channel or the history channel. I love learning and reading about history. Gun range, I'm a big gun guy, and Texas Tech football. Yeah, love it. A good day at work, everyone leaves here safe, and no equipment's damaged, but more importantly, everyone goes home safe.
Welcome back to the city. We are now joined by our new Development Services Director, Patrick Howard. Patrick, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your work history.
Well, I've been working in the field of planning and community development for about 20 years. Most recently, I was with the City of San Antonio, where I was Assistant Director of Planning and Community Development for 6 years.
What about the planning profession interested you enough to enter that field?
Well, I actually have a background in architecture, and I always thought about looking at how we design buildings, and really it kind of got me thinking about really a broader picture about communities and development, and really sort of led me to this idea of planning communities and planning cities. So that's essentially how I got to where I am.
What about the position here in San Angelo intrigued you?
Well, I think it's a community that's on the rise. It's very stable as far as the economy is concerned, very diverse with the Air Force Base here and with the university. So I thought it really had a lot of great assets, and with the river also. And so I thought, wow, what a great community, what a great place to come and really continue to add value to the community in my position.
Earlier in your career, I'd like you to talk a little bit about some of the projects that you may have been involved in and the things that you've worked on that you're most proud of.
Well, as I said, I've been working in government for 20 years. I've worked in the affordable housing industry with the housing authorities. And then again, with the City of San Antonio, I was really responsible for revitalization, downtown revitalization more specifically. And one of the things that I worked on was developing incentives for inner city revitalization. And so I can now go back and see the fruits of some of my labor as it relates to really putting some of those incentives in place.
As I mentioned, you are the new director of our Development Services Department. I'd like you to talk a little bit about what Development Services is and what it does.
Okay. Well, I'd like to frame this discussion in the context of neighborhoods, because when you think about great cities, you think about the great areas and great places within those cities, those neighborhoods, that really attract you to the city. And so as it relates to San Angelo, I really want to think about how we build and cultivate great communities and great neighborhoods. And so I have within my purview the planning division that looks at long-range planning, looks at the future, highest and best use of land within the city. We also look at how we preserve cultural assets. We look at design guidelines and the like. And so planning division, and then there's engineering services, which really thinks about how infrastructure is laid out, how it's constructed, and really facilitates walkable, safe neighborhoods. And then you talk about building permit and inspections. And so we think about developing in the appropriate manner that creates safe environments through safe buildings and safe structures. And then you pull it all together through the use of technology with my GIS division that provides data in the form of maps and other venues in order to provide timely information to citizens.
You've been here in San Angelo about a month now. What are your impressions of our community?
It's a great community. People are very friendly. I think there's a lot of history here, a lot of, really a lot of great assets, and I think that it really makes for a great city.
And again, I know that you are in the process of assessing what happens within your department, but what are your initial impressions about how the Development Services Department operates?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that we've got committed staff. A lot of them have been here for some time, so they know the community and they understand the need to be responsive to the citizenry. And that's one of the things that we're going to work on, is to continue our effort to really be customer service and business friendly. And I think that the staff has done a great job of doing that, and I'm just going to continue to help encourage them to do the same.
Have you yet established any goals for the Development Services Department?
Well, one of the things we want to do again is to really think about how we engage the neighborhoods more, how we create venues and opportunities to get the feedback we need about processes and procedures and the like. The other thing we want to do also is begin to help create opportunities to educate the citizenry more about, how they can be more engaged in the community. I guess additionally, what I'd like to mention is the fact that we want to make sure that we're looking at our processes and procedures and making sure that the work that we're doing is the most efficient method to use in order to deliver the services. And so we'll continue to evaluate that and begin to figure out better ways of doing our business.
One of the key development efforts here in our community has obviously been the revitalization of downtown. I'm interested in your perspective about what's happened downtown, and where do you see that going?
Well, I mean, downtown is rich in history. You've got a lot of neat architectural structures that have been preserved, and that's great. I mean, I think when you think about a community and you think about really building on the past, I mean, there's nothing more exciting than that. So those rich cultural assets, historic assets, are wonderful. I think that there's a lot of opportunities for infill, which we will help to cultivate and to foster, maybe through some of our smart permitting and other things, and then again through appropriate design review. So we'll continue to do that. I think though that the downtown is a great asset, and we all need to see it as our downtown.
Now, one of the sort of the fine balances that Development Services has to walk is trying to meet the needs of your customers, developers here in our community, and along with ensuring that that development is done in a smart and safe manner. How do you strike that balance between those two sides that at times can be sort of there can be some tension between those?
You're right, that's true. I think the biggest thing is that you've got to always be willing to listen. I think that there is sometimes communication gaps that causes there to be some of the confusion. So I think what I've been trying to do and will continue to do is to really be willing to listen to the citizens, developers, neighborhood residents, and the like, to understand really what the challenges are and to be able to figure out and offer solutions in order to address those. But we will continue to evolve as a department and begin to figure out other methods to really sort of resolve some of these issues that have been maybe plaguing the department in the past, or maybe perceptions about services that are being delivered or not delivered for that matter, and we want to make sure that we communicate the right message.
And you're segueing directly into my next question. I wanted to ask you about a development task force that you have proposed to initiate. Talk a little bit about what that will be and what you hope to accomplish with it.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things, as I mentioned, is communication is critical, and I think what we want to do is provide the development stakeholder community to be engaged on a regular basis to discuss these issues that they may have, and also to educate them as well. And so we'll provide a monthly forum to come together and discuss issues related to development, be it ordinances that are on the books, ordinances that we may be considering, and we want to get their feedback on it, or general concerns that they may have about processes and procedures. As I said, we want to evolve as an organization, and we need that really direct feedback that we'll get from the development community so that we, again, are delivering services in an appropriate and a timely fashion.
And at the same time, I assume that you expect to use that forum to educate those developers about what it is and why it is that development services does the things that it does.
Absolutely. This will be education on both sides. I think, again, we'll hear concerns that they have, and then we'll be able to provide them, again, information about services that are being provided or methods by which they could address issues that they may not have considered. And again, if there are ordinances that are changing or ordinances that we're considering or even a delivery of a certain service that we want to propose making changes to, we want to provide that forum for them to give us that kind of feedback on those things.
And I know that you've talked a lot so far about community outreach. Do you have other ideas for how you want to get citizens more engaged in what happens with development services?
Well, I really want to try to help cultivate more neighborhood leaders, and so what we'll do is try to develop partnerships with other community entities to really offer that sort of training to help facilitate more neighborhood leaders. Again, we'll be, I call it taking our show on the road. We'll try to be more engaging as far as meeting with community members and community groups that are out there, vested in their communities, trying to do great things. And again, we just want to be a partner in that process. And so we'll meet them and really, again, begin to dialogue about how we all collectively can make our communities better.
In your experience, is that something that people really want to do? Because in most instances, you see people coming to city government only when something that we do impacts them in a very personal way.
Well, I think, just even across the country, I think this whole idea of volunteerism and community engagement is really catching on. And I think that it's exciting to see how involved folks want to be in the process. And I think that it's really working in all of our favor to be able to help cultivate that even more. And so I think this, again, a great community, people very engaged and involved, and they're really concerned about the community. So I only expect that we'll have even more involvement and engagement on the part of the citizens.
And if people want to become part of that process, what's the best way for them to do that or maybe to get in touch with you?
Well, I would say, go to the city's website and look for the Department of Development Services. We have all our contact information there. All the divisions that I mentioned with information about services and the like. And a new feature we'll have more information about neighborhoods and really how great they are. And so look forward to seeing that in the future as well.
We've been talking with our new Development Services Director, Patrick Howard, and we hope you'll join us for the next episode of The City.